everyone. I'm your host, Anika Zubair, and welcome back to the next episode of the Customer Success Pro podcast. I am a customer success executive leader, award-winning CS strategist, CS coach, and customer success fanatic. I help CS leaders and CSMs build and scale world-class CS processes and teams. I'm a strong believer that customer success is not a destination, but a journey. And it can be a tough journey, but don't worry, I'm here to help. This podcast was created to help make your CS journey a little bit easier to navigate. Join me every month on this podcast where we will dive into the hottest topics in CS, the newest strategies, and the best practices in customer success so you can make your CS journey a little bit easier. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast so that you can continue to learn on this CS journey that we are on together. Welcome back. Today, I'm speaking with Jared Orr. Jared has been a CSM since 2018. He's been heavily involved in startups throughout most of his career, and currently he works as a senior CSM at BCom Solutions and lives in Arizona with his wife and daughter. Much like many of us in tech, Jared has recently gone through a company-wide reduction in force, or in other words, he was laid off because his role was made redundant. He, like many of us, have had to deal with job loss in the last year, and he had to go through the toughest job market in decades. His perseverance and grit got him into his new role today, and we are going to chat to him about how he made it through this tough job search. Let's chat to Jared. Welcome, Jared, to the podcast. I am so very excited to have you as my next guest. I know we've been friends in the customer success space for some time now, and I've seen you evolve through customer success and creating content. But for our listeners that do not know who you are or what it is you do, can you please give us a brief introduction of who you are?
Absolutely. Great to be here, Anika. Looking forward to this conversation. So I've been in customer success since 2018. It'll actually be 6 years next month. So when
That's exciting.
Anniversary. I'm not sure the exact date, but sometime mid-June.
Cool.
And I've worked in multiple different verticals, social media marketing, managed services, obviously B2B SaaS, and just got a job last month at a company called BCom Solutions. And it's a IT lifecycle management platform, basically like the Salesforce for IT. So I've been doing a lot of learning, like you and I were just talking about. I'm starting to get clients handed over to me. So I love customer success. And during my layoff, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I started a copywriting business where I write content and copy for software companies. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's what I do.
Awesome. That's so great to hear. I'm so excited for you because obviously following your journey and what's happened to you over the last year, it's just nice to see you succeed into this new role. So really, really excited for you. I know we'll jump into it more, but let's talk more specifically about the role you now find yourself in. Like, what's your actual role? Kind of, what are you responsible for? Tell us a little bit more about the team, the company, the role itself.
Sure. So I'm a senior CSM. I am one of 6 customer success managers. So it's a smaller team, and it's literally just us and our VP of customer success. So kind of a pretty flat organization. And the company itself has been around for almost 25 years, and they've never had layoffs, and they have no shareholder funding, which is so rare in the software space.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's like unheard of, like in the VC-backed world that we're probably used to hearing more about this. So that's really, I'm sure, very reassuring to you as you step into this new role.
Yeah, no, when they told me in the interview process, they had they weren't VC backed. I was like, that is music to my ears. So, and you and I have talked about that. So yeah, we can mutually agree on something like that. But anyway, so the company itself. So basically what's interesting about this specific role as opposed to my other roles is we don't really have a renewal process. Once a customer signs on with us, they're basically with us until they give us a 60-day notice they don't want to partner with us anymore. So which is interesting because I'm so used to okay, they're 90 days out from their renewal. I should probably schedule an EBR and get the wheels in motion. But now it's more like what I have to do is after they're onboarded from the onboarding team, I need to make sure that they are adopting it well, consistently, that they see the value, and I'm delivering on their desired outcomes so that 60-day notice doesn't come. And from what I understand, it's usually when customers do churn, I've only been there for a month, so I don't know this for a fact from my experience, but from what I've heard from other CSMs is usually it's not because we didn't deliver, it's because just other things happen within the company out of decision makers control and they need to, go to another solution. So that's kind of nice, but it is just a very different dynamic than what I'm used to.
Yeah, new learnings. Customer success is always evolving. I think no matter how many years of experience you have in customer success, what we did in our last workplace versus our new workplace, and also what we did last year or pre-pandemic cannot apply to how customer success is done in the world that we find ourselves in. So really cool to hear you're continuously learning and continuing to expand your horizons as you step into this new role. Awesome to hear. I guess a little bit more personal and I guess a little bit more into who you are as a person. I'm really curious, like you've just landed this new job, which is amazing. I know you've been looking for some time, which we'll get into, but what's really next in your either CS career journey or your personal career ambition?
That's a great question. If you would have told me a year ago that I would have a copywriting business, I would have said, what the hell is copywriting? So it's amazing, what life throws at you and how it, opens up new opportunities and puts you on new paths. But as far as customer success goes, I told my boss, the woman that ended up recruiting me to the job, I really would love to move into more of a leadership role in the near future. Not because I think it's the cliche next step of my career, but I do think it would be something that I would really enjoy and do very well at. So that is what I would love to do eventually, is manage a customer success team and develop CSMs. So that would be my ideal next step. And I'm just continuing to build my copywriting business because I'm a very creative person. And I've been writing online since 2020. You and I have known each other since about that time. So you've seen it all. And I just enjoy writing and creating content and writing things that, help grow businesses. So I can't see me stopping that anytime soon. And maybe someday that will grow into a business where I can just take full time. I'm taking it one day at a time, one client at a time. But right now I enjoy the path that I'm on.
Definitely. And I think you recently just shared on LinkedIn how much you enjoy that creation process and how enjoyable it is to you to create and write content. And I think even when you first pivoted into like copywriting as a business for yourself, I was like, what is Jared doing? I'm baffled, but it's in a really cool way, like that you're pursuing copywriting when everything you've ever shared is about customer success. So I know we'll dive into deeper why you chose that route for your business, but let's kind of jump into where you found yourself a year ago, because that's really the crux of this conversation. That's why we're here talking. And it's really how to get hired in customer success in a tough job market, which I think for the last 2 years, a lot of people have been feeling. And I personally have gone through a reduction of force or layoff or redundancy of role or whatever you want to call it. But you also experienced that yourself, and it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. The job market is super tough. You were laid off. How did you actually start in your job search when you were looking for this next role?
Yeah, well, it would be 1 year next month when I was laid off. So I was laid off for a total of 9 months. And the cool thing is I actually got this job offer for my current role on my 9-month mark of getting laid off.
Wow.
So that was kind of cool.
I was in the similar boat too. I think I got my job offer in my 10th month of exactly like to the date. I was like, this is crazy when I saw my offer versus looking back at my like last day at my previous company. I was like, whoa, what are the chances that this is like some sort of cosmic synergy is happening?
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Synchronicities, yeah. But yeah, so, oh my gosh. Yeah. So I was laid off June of 2023. So even in like normal job market times, summer is not a good time to get laid off just because hiring slows down because people are on vacation and traveling. And then add to the fact that there were so little quality customer success roles. Like just to back up a little bit here. So I was laid off twice in a year. My first layoff was August of 2022. So kind of when the market was starting to, decline, but it wasn't there quite yet. And just to give you an idea, when I was laid off that first time in 2022, within a week, I had 9 or 10 interviews. Salesforce found my resume organically. Gainsight was interviewing me, other very high quality companies. And I found a job within a month. So I figured this time I would still be able to find a job relatively quickly, just kind of based off the last time I was laid off. But no, that's not what happened at all.
I love that you were so transparent there. I felt the same, by the way. Not that I was laid off of my previous role, but when I left, I thought, okay, I'll take a month off and then start looking for my next gig. And sure enough, I had 3 offers in a month when I was looking in early 2022. And then when my layoff happened, I was like, cool, it'll be like maybe 3, 4 months at most. And I was truly humbled by the job market. So I love that you were transparent around timelines, because I think a lot of people listening need to hear it, because right now it's taking way longer to find your next gig.
Way longer. I've seen some people get pretty lucky and find a role fairly quickly, which is great. So happy for them, but it's just not the norm right now. It's just not. So I never stopped working my network. I never stopped reaching out to people within my customer success network and just saying, hey, are you guys growing your customer success team, right? Many of the roles that I interviewed for were because of connections at that company or a referral. I never, because of my resume, because of my experience, because of my brand, I never struggled really getting interviews. And I even made it to the final round 3 or 4 times, multiple times, but could never make it across the finish line. So I invested in some coaching. Quint Boyle and Carly Agar, 2 just exceptional human beings. I would recommend their services to anybody. They really helped me grow in my confidence of selling myself, because if you're going to succeed in this job market, you have to be willing to sell yourself and be almost outrageously confident in your abilities. And I wasn't, that's never been me, right? I was raised to, I'm nothing against like my upbringing, but like I was raised to, be humble and not to brag, but like I needed to throw all that advice out the window in order to find a job in this job market. So they helped me do that.
I think that now that I find myself on the opposite end of the spectrum here, I obviously went through a layoff like you did, but now I'm back in seat and also hiring for customer success managers, support agents, you name it. And I couldn't agree with you more on the fact that having a very strong pitch and personal reason why you're here and what you're about to offer to this company and this role is probably the biggest tip I can put out there. Yes, leverage your network, like you said. Get started in your job search by making it clear to everyone you know that you are looking. But I think being prepared for those interviews is so, so, so important. And you got a coach. I totally recommend Carly. I think she's amazing at what she does. In general, I think that the one thing to get started is treat some of the first interviews you do as almost practice. I know no one wants to hear that, but you have to get better at pitching yourself. You have to get better at being less humble. And I think it's hard though in customer success. We're naturally like the people that want to say yes and be empathetic and open the door for others rather than walking in the door first ourselves. So it's a mindset shift. So it's interesting that that's kind of like the first steps that you took in finding a job, is like not only leveraging your network, but also making very clear your interview skills and how you are interviewing as well. But you just mentioned you were interviewing for quite some time as well, which is never easy. Like I also felt this as well. And this job market is just dictating that we spend months instead of weeks looking for jobs. How did you keep your sanity in a very, very tough market?
Well, I mean, starting the copywriting business helped me. It helped me expand in my creative skills and, do meaningful work for, software companies. So I was kind of able to stay within the software space and do work for people and work that I enjoyed. So that helped me. And that's actually one thing that I tell people is like, I know this may seem easier said than done, but start a business, do something that is meaningful to you. It's probably not going to pay the bills right away. In fact, it definitely won't, but just do something to keep your sanity. So that, and then just having the mindset of this is not going to last forever. I am going to find a job eventually. I'm good at what I do. I've been doing it for a while. Someone's going to see that value and hire me eventually. So those 2 things really helped kind of get me through some pretty difficult days for sure.
Definitely. And I think that it's another reminder to everyone listening that it is not you. Like hiring managers and companies are looking for something so specific right now. And there is so much talent on the market right now. And it is so saturated, and they can take their time with evaluating top tier candidates. And even though you are top tier, there's probably four of you in their pipeline right now, and they can't give the job to four people. They have to pick one. So it really does not come down to you. But obviously, you can sharpen your tools and be better at interviewing. But this market is something that you have to be patient about. And it's really awesome that you are able to start your own business and really keep your head straight while you are able to look for jobs. But you did start a business, and you just mentioned that it didn't keep the lights on at first, but I'm guessing it did obviously contribute to your overall personal growth, your business growth, like just overall it helped you in so many ways. Do you mind speaking to exactly what led to you starting the business and what you would recommend if someone else wants to start a business?
Of course. So I've always been very entrepreneurial minded. I've done a lot of projects here and there and started a few things, but I've always known eventually I do want to start a business and actually grow it into something that is very profitable and can contribute to my financial gain as well as just my personal success. But I never really knew what I wanted to do. And obviously, entrepreneurship is very glamorized in today's society. So I didn't want to do it because, all the cool people are doing it and I want to be like them. I actually want to do it because I genuinely have something that I want to build, right? So when this layoff happened, again, I've been writing online since 2020. And actually a few months prior to it, I had reached out to a couple of my friends, people that you know as well, who have software businesses, asking them, hey, can I write a few things for you? Totally free, but is it okay if I do that? And many of them said yes. Then I get laid off and I'm like, well, what if I start some kind of a content writing business? So I pitched the idea to a friend of mine who owns 30 businesses. He's like an entrepreneur guru. And he told me, he's like, Jared, you have the skills to be a copywriter. All you need to do is pivot your writing just a little bit. So it's not writing to entertain, it's writing to sell. And that's what copywriting is. It's writing to sell. It's like, if you could learn how to do that effectively, then good things can happen. So I took some courses, I invested in some coaching for copywriting and started, asking people if I could do some paid work for them. And long story short, I have 5 clients now, all really within the software space. And that's what I brand myself as when it comes to my side hustle is I'm a software copywriter. I help SaaS businesses grow, attract and retain their highest paying customers through quality web copy and content. And I feel incredibly fulfilled doing that. And it's awesome because one of the reasons why this company hired me is because of my copywriting skills, because of my content skills. And I've only been there a month. They're already asking me to help with writing out some content and those kind of things, which I think is so awesome.
That's so cool. Also, CSMs are jacks of all trades. Literally, you're now helping with a marketing ask, even though you're hired for a customer success role. So I love hearing that. And I love hearing that you're fulfilled outside of your 9 to 5, as well as in building your business. Really quickly, was that friend telling you to shift your writing towards selling the reason why you did copywriting? Why copywriting? Because as a customer success manager, you could probably do coaching. You could probably do training stuff. You could do CS consulting. I mean, I'm saying that because that's what my business is all about, being a CS leader. But you took a very different business route idea. What made you pick copywriting?
Well, I guess the two parts of that question. So the first part is why I didn't choose to go into coaching or consulting. And honestly, obviously I thought about it. But the main reason why I chose not to is because, again, there's so many exceptional customer success coaches like you and Diana and Irit, just incredible people who are way more qualified than I am. So it's I just didn't feel like I wanted to compete with you guys, honestly. Obviously, I could find my own niche and vertical with it, but I don't know. I just wasn't really feeling that was what I needed to do. And then when I looked more into, after my friend recommended copywriting and I looked more into it, I don't know. I just felt very, very good about that line of business. So I guess it was more of a gut thing. I just trusted my gut. Didn't really feel good about this path, even though it kind of made more sense, but I felt really good about this path, even though I had little to no experience. So I just took the path less traveled, and so far it's paid off well.
I love hearing that, by the way. You started a business kind of because you were dabbling in something new, then suddenly a layoff shifted your focus to really diving deep into that business. And now you obviously have 5 clients, you're side hustling, as you said. It's now something that you do on top of your 9 to 5. It's just really a great way to shape a story of who you are. And it's really awesome to hear how this is not just a one and done, because a lot of people see, much like networking or building your personal brand or anything like that, it's like, oh, let me just do this until I land my job. But you are really now living and breathing so much, being a copywriter, that it's so much so that your current company is asking you to copyright or help with copywriting within your current role, which is really great to hear. And I love seeing it come full circle here, because again, I remember us having conversations a year ago where you're like, should I take the leap of faith? And it's awesome to see that you've done it, and really the success story behind it. But let's shift a little bit of focus to job hunting. I know that keeping the lights on and also keeping your sanity led to this business that you've developed. But a lot of people listening are struggling with finding a role or even being heard at an interview, because there's just so many job seekers out there. You shared some tips on TikTok. Can you give us some examples of like horror stories you've experienced while looking for a role?
Well, you should link my TikTok below. I've shared a lot of job search horror stories on my TikTok, some from me and others from people that have submitted them to me. But oh my gosh, just there's so many. And a lot of it has to do with just the fact that it's a highly competitive, saturated job market. But, I dealt with some very unprofessional hiring managers. I had a recruiter.
And that's so sad. That's so sad to hear.
I know.
So sad.
It's already so hard out there, and they just make it so much worse. Not all of them, of course. It's like the ones that I'm thinking of that I had to deal with. That's what I'm thinking of. So, for example, a recruiter scoffed at me when I told her my salary expectations. Just straight up scoffed. Okay.
Oh my goodness. I don't think that should be allowed. And also, it breaks my heart, because like, as I continue to hire, I want to be an exceptional hiring manager, even with the ones that I cannot hire or do not see as a potential fit. Like, regardless if you're an excellent candidate for the role or you're just not up to the par we're looking for, I don't want to give the impression, both for my sake personally, because I would hate for someone to have that impression of me, but also I'm representing my company. And the fact that a recruiter, I'm guessing an internal recruiter, scoffed at your salary expectations, that just shows what type of company that is. And that's a big red flag to me.
See, that's another thing that every time I would be mistreated by a company or totally ghosted, I had to say, like, that shows the quality of the company. So stinks that I couldn't get a job, but like I did dodge a bullet. So that's another mindset that I needed to take with me throughout this process.
And I think anyone listening can probably, please do listen, that like, yes, we're in a market where there's fewer jobs and we're more and more desperate to find our next thing. And sometimes we'll let our standards slip because we are so in need of the next paycheck or the next role or whatever it is. And I don't want to speak for everyone, because everyone's personal experience and personal reasons for finding their next role is different. But if a company is scoffing at you or treating you poorly in an interview process, that just is an opening into how they're going to treat you as an employee. You're not even an employee yet, and they're doing this to you. Imagine if you're actually a paid employee there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's one other one I want to share. I shared this on LinkedIn, but I want to share it again, just for all the hiring managers that are listening. I would just advise you to please, take this advice I'm about to give you. So this one company I was interviewing for, it was with the CEO and one other person. There's literally 4 people at the company. So I'm interviewing with half the company here. And the very first question the CEO asks me after we kind of do the small talk is, what are you passionate about? Really great. Actually, I prefer that question over tell me about yourself. I think that's really cool. Tell me about what you're passionate about. So I took that as an opportunity to talk about how I'm really passionate about, software and writing for software companies and bringing that value and helping software companies grow through quality content, right? Like, it's because I am passionate about that. And after I answer the question, he goes, oh, okay, well, we're looking for someone who's passionate about customer data. And he was ready to end the interview because I didn't answer his incredibly broad question exactly how he wanted me to answer it.
I mean, then you shouldn't ask such a broad question.
If you're a hiring manager listening to this, please, for the love of all that is good in this world, do not do that. Do not. Ask questions that are broad, but don't be looking for a specific answer that in your mind could make or break the candidate's likelihood of getting the job. don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine to ask it. And then if you want to dive deeper and then like get more specific, be like, oh, that's awesome that you have a passion for copywriting. What about in the customer success space? Or what about customers make you excited? Like that's a good segue. I wouldn't say it's a great way to segue, but at least segue into specifically what you're asking and looking for. Don't expect an answer, because I can imagine that question being asked to all candidates and everyone's going to have a different response, whether it's I'm passionate about my kids, I'm passionate about reading, I'm passionate about traveling. Like that can be anything and everything. But if you want a business specific answer, like as a hiring manager, ask the specific question. Have you worked with this product before? Have you, worked specifically in customer data? Tell me about a time that you've seen success with it, for example. But that is way too broad of a role. Like
the job description itself didn't really, it talked about customer data, obviously, because it's a CSM role, but it didn't say like anything specific about like the need for like, data acumen, things like that. So it was just odd that like he felt the need to do that, but they ghosted me, never heard back from them. It is what it is. It's fine.
Oh man, the horror stories. We could probably keep going on and do an entire podcast about the horror stories of this job market. And I hope everyone listening understands that you're not alone in these horror stories. But I also hope that anyone listening that is hiring, like, please be mindful that we're all human. And at the end of the day, like, imagine if you were on the other side of the table. Like, that's what I always consider, even when I'm interviewing things. Like, I was somebody on the other side of the video call and I was looking for my next role and I was trying to be as passionate and articulate as possible and make sure I had a really strong presence in that interview. But I think if the CS leader is hiring, you should use that empathy piece to make sure you're empathetic towards the candidate that you're interviewing for as well. So totally agree. But let's move away from horror stories. Let's talk a little bit about preparing for an interview. You talked before that you got a coach, that you really worked on making sure your confidence level was really high before going into an interview. Would you say that was your secret sauce, or what is your secret sauce when preparing for an interview?
Sure. So I really just go through their website and like see, like, because their website shows how they communicate their product and value to customers and potential customers. So, what are the main like aspects of their product or service that they emphasize on their homepage. And then sometimes I'll go into, their resources like blogs or ebooks that they have, because all of that has to do with value they bring to their customers. So if I can know how they talk about their value to their customers, then I can incorporate that into how I answer their questions. Different experiences I can draw on that align with like how they service their customers, things like that. So I really just do my due diligence that way. And I, make sure obviously my technology is all working, that I'm dressed well, and that I have drinking water beforehand so I'm not, mucky, because I made that mistake before. That's pretty simple, but just do my due diligence and make sure everything is working on my end to prepare for the best interview.
I love the word that you just used, due diligence. I think that we do it every single day with our customers. And I like to say this to CSMs that I coach and work with, that if you are preparing for an interview, it's like preparing for a call with a customer. You need to do your due diligence. You need to come prepared. You need to almost preempt the questions your customers are going to ask you. You need to preempt the questions that possibly you're going to be asked about your CV and your experience thus far and the type of customers you've worked with. You should be prepared to answer those questions, much like you would prepare for any customer call. So I love that you said due diligence. It's so, so important.
And you also need to prepare for questions that you're going to ask, because that's one thing that I learned in this interview process, in this, these last 9 months was, they will literally not move on if you move you through the interview process if you're not asking like really good questions, which I can understand why that is. So as I was doing my due diligence, I would usually think of 3 or 4 questions that I'd usually get to all 3 or 4, but like I would usually think of a couple that I could ask pertaining to their value and what they do.
I love that. That's so true. As a hiring manager, I'm not just evaluating your previous skills, but I'm evaluating how you would be in a live customer interaction. And a customer success manager is going to do the right discovery with the customer on a call. They're going to ask the right questions. They're going to be asking why or what or how. And if you're not doing that in an interview, how am I going to trust that you're going to be doing that with a customer? So valid that you should be preparing questions to ask back in process, but also at the end of an interview. I truly get upset when I'm not interviewed because I like to tell candidates it's a two-way conversation. You should be interviewing me and the company just as much as I'm interviewing you. So I love that you have questions prepared.
Yeah.
But we talked about the interview process now. We talked about how you've landed interviews, but there's usually a step before offer that is happening more and more now, which are homework assignments. And I think that they're getting more and more detailed, a little bit outrageous, if I'm completely honest. And they're almost like asking you to do a day of work, which if you're doing, like you said, 9 or 10 interview processes, that's a lot of homework assignments. How did you keep your sanity while doing those homework assignments?
Yeah. The most typical homework assignment that I did throughout these interviews was a mock QBR or like a mock presentation. So I actually wrote an article for CS Insider, which should be released by the end of this month. I'm not sure when this will be released, but we're currently recording in May, so this should be released by the end of May, about how to ace your mock QBR. So maybe we can link that in, or you guys
definitely, I'll link it in.
Yeah, perfect. So basically, what I would just do is I would make sure that I read the prompt they gave me a few times, just so I don't miss any like specific details that they're looking for. And then I would use a tool called Doc, D-O-C-K. It's better than a slide deck because it's more detailed. You can actually, it just looks better than like scrolling through slides. And I would just create it as if I'm creating an actual QBR. I would add my information and the customer's information and, goals or things that we've talked about before and be like, okay, this is how this pertains to what we're talking about today for this QBR. And, I would literally just treat it as any QBR that I've done throughout my years as a CSM. If you are breaking into customer success, you're not really sure what a QBR is, again, like go to the article that I wrote for CS Insider, just read through that. It has everything you need. But yeah, I know it's a simple answer, but I literally would just treat it as if I was doing a QBR because I've done it so many times as far as like how I prepare for it and how I structure it.
Definitely. I think homework assignments should be kept to what you are used to doing. Like you said, you've done tons of QBRs. You should be able to hammer it out. Yes, it is a significant amount of work. Even when you're in seat as a customer success manager, a QBR is a bit of a task to prepare and lots of homework and lots of research to do before you actually present. But
yes,
I think that keeping your sanity is just making sure you're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's something that you are doing again and again, and you have done again and again. So don't try to like overdo it, because when you overdo it, then you trip over yourself during that presentation. So I love those tips.
And keep in mind with these QBRs, they're going to ask you questions that they know you don't know the answer to, simply just to test how you would respond to that. And usually I would just say, that's a great question. I'm really not sure of the answer right now, but let me get back to you by the end of the day. And then usually in my recap email that I would send them, because sometimes they ask for a recap email, sometimes they don't, whether or not I always send them a recap email just to show them that like, this is what I do. In the recap email, I'll give them the quote unquote answer that they asked about.
I love that. I literally got off of a coaching call yesterday where I said the follow-up is so critical as a customer success manager, and following up to a QBR presentation, even if it's in an interview, is just showing how tuned in you are as a CSM. So that is such a great tip. And I know that you mentioned that you landed quite a few interviews, which is awesome. And you were going through process, but you fell short when it came to an offer or actually landing your current role because there was just so many processes that you were going through. What is your secret sauce for actually getting into the role that you find yourself in today? I think a lot of people listening are going to say, like, was it networking? How did you get your foot in the door with so many people looking? Like, what was your secret sauce into actually landing into the role you find yourself in today?
I'll give you a twofold answer to that. So how I got this role is, so one of my clients for my copywriting business, Update AI, you know them, we're friends with Josh. So they were my first client, and they had a customer success workshop out in Boston back in March or April. And he wanted me to come out to that to do some marketing work for them. So I did. And that's where I met the VP of customer success for this company who eventually hired me. So that's kind of like extreme networking right there. But it worked. Because I started this business, I was able to find this job. So obviously I owe Josh a lot for a lot of
It
reasons.
wasn't just Josh. You took the leap of faith of being at that event. Yes, thank you, Josh, for inviting Jared, if you are listening. But you went to the actual event, and while at that event, you didn't stop networking, which
Yeah.
is what I think a lot of people think is like, oh, let me just post something once, or let me reach out to one person one time. Like, I remember when I was networking, I told my network every few weeks, if not months, like constantly reminding, hey, I'm still looking. If you know anyone hiring for a CS leader, I'm still looking. I'm actively at events. I'm actively telling anyone and everyone I come in contact with, I am looking for a role, which is something I know you do really well online, but you did it one step further. You decided to go to an event and engage in person that, hey, I'm looking, which is awesome.
Yeah, never stop networking. Yeah, that's great advice. And then the second fold here. So I'll take my glasses off. So I have thyroid eye disease. My left eye is bigger than my right eye. It used to be a lot worse. Like when I was in the thick of my job search, it was so much worse than it is now. So as I was interviewing, doing these, and it looks so much worse on Zoom too. I don't know what it is. It looks so much worse on Zoom. Anyway, so when I was doing these interviews, I realized that my eye condition is probably a net negative. And that's just a reality that a lot of job seekers have to face, is like, there's probably something about me, maybe my physical appearance, maybe my age, that is hindering me from getting a job. After I'd made it to the final round, probably my third or fourth time, I'm like, okay, something's not right here. So I got these glasses, they're fake, to mask my eye deformity. I'm getting treatment, by the way, soon to like help out.
But I just thought you started to need glasses. Like
No.
that's what when I started seeing you on more and more webinars, videos, whatever content where it's like your face as well. I was like, oh, it seems like Jared needs glasses now. But
No,
then it's
these are fake.
that you took that pivot and realized that appearance makes such an impact in an interview.
Look, here's the reality, and this is a harsh reality, but it's true. Companies are looking for any reason not to hire you, because, like you said earlier, they have an embarrassment of riches they can choose from, and they have multiple people that are highly qualified that would probably do great, but they have to pick one out of like 5 or 6, right? So I had to come to terms that like I need to do something about this. And it's a new thing, by the way. I've only had this for about 1.5 years now.
I know.
So,
I was like, this must be new, because I'm like, I've noticed it, but I didn't say anything. But also, like, it has to be new. I've known you for years, and I'm like, this is only a recent development.
It is, yeah. Happened at the most perfect time in my life too. Yeah, great.
It's always a lifetime's any event.
Yeah, thyroid eye disease, layoffs, terrible job market. It's been a great year.
It has been in other ways. You've learned.
In other ways, it's been great. Yeah, but it's just like all these things at once. Like, holy crap! But yeah, so I mean, my advice to anyone out there who feels that like there may be something about their appearance that might be hindering them, as harsh as that may seem, it is the case sometimes. You just come to terms with that and see if there's a way that you could possibly either address it in the interviews, like it's your age or something like that, or like what I did, something you could maybe do to mask it in any way. So look, I'm all about radical authenticity and just being yourself all the time. I've had people that I'm not even connected with on LinkedIn say, hey, I've seen your posts and they're so human. Like, I'm all about authenticity. But when it comes to this job market, you got to come to terms with things like that, like I did. So that's my advice.
It's a new world. It's a new world out there. And I think it's only going to evolve more and more. And like you've evolved and you've adapted to the situation, whether it's with your eye, whether it's with like how you actually got your foot in the door, it's just very evident that we have to constantly push the borders when it comes to what we're doing in order to land in front of in front of the right job, but also just adapt to the ever-changing environment that we find ourselves in. It's no longer, hey, I'm going to have 3 or 4 offers and I get to like negotiate against them, or I get to really validate against each one of which one I really want to choose. You have to really adapt to what's happening in the world right now. And I think that that's just the reality of this job market. But you also had 2 layoffs, as well as a significant amount of time looking for a job. Looking back at your job hunting experience, both the first time and then now, if you were to redo it, like what would you do differently? Or like, is there any regrets or something you would have done sooner?
I would have invested in coaching sooner. So I didn't invest in Carly. So I was laid off in June, and I think I started working with Carly in like maybe October, November. The reason why I didn't invest quickly, because I didn't think it would take so long.
Yeah.
Once I realized
so
this is taking a while, this is tough. I need to, I need help. So if I could go back and tell myself June of 2023, anything, it'd be like, talk to Carly, invest in her coaching, and, maybe I would have gotten a job a lot sooner if that's the case. I mean, looking at where I am now, like I really feel like I was supposed to get this job at VCom, but also it's like, I don't know, maybe it could have shifted something. Who knows, right? I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason and our timeline is perfect the way it is. But if I could change anything, I would have invested in coaching sooner.
Definitely. And I think that in general, like the consensus is like, hey, I'm going to land a role, so I don't need to focus my energy on coaching, or I don't need to focus my energy on expanding a business or starting a business. I remember I was like turning down work as a consultant and as a CS coach because I was so sure that my next role was going to be this one I was interviewing for. Fast forward 6 months, I launched a like CSM Rev Up cohort academy course, and I wish I did that sooner. I really did. I wish I invested more in my abilities and my business, because I think that the timeline, like you said, you can never really know what's next and what's around the corner, but you can prepare yourself to be successful. And you did that by investing in coaching. And I think that all of us listening could probably benefit from that sooner rather than later. So thanks for sharing that, Jared. Cool. We could keep going. And I'm sure there's so many more questions I could ask you about the job hunt, but I want to wrap this up with my famous quickfire questions, where I challenge you to try to answer these next questions in a sentence or less. Are you ready?
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. The first question is, if you could predict the future, what do you think customer success will focus on next year?
2025. Customer success, you've probably gotten this answer before, but customer success will be more revenue driven, and CSMs will own more revenue numbers.
Totally. I think that that's just going to continue forevermore in customer success. So totally agree. Next question is, which app or software do you use every day on your phone or laptop, and why?
I use Update AI. And this isn't a shameless plug for my friend Josh, but Update AI is such an amazing tool that recaps emails and gives you everything recaps customer calls and gives you everything that you need for every call that you've had. And it saves me a lot of time. So Update AI.
Loves that, and love time saving. That is something I think every CSM needs more of in their lives.
Yeah.
Next question is, if you could change one thing about customer success, what would it be?
The relationship that CSMs have with marketing. I think that, and I've written about this on LinkedIn. So if you want to go to my anyone listening to this, go to my LinkedIn. I've written about this. It's pinned to my profile. But I do think the relationship between marketing and CS needs to evolve so that marketing materials are more focused on the pain points and issues our customers are facing on a daily basis.
I love that. I think that's the first time I've heard that answer to that question. And I think it's underrepresented marketing and CS cross collaboration. We always talk about working with sales or with product or even with engineering if there's like a bug fix or something happening, but we don't talk about so much marketing, at least not in the early startup phase. It's more if you're in a mature business. So that's an awesome answer. Love that. Amazing. And my final question for you today, Jared, is who should be my next podcast guest?
I would say either Nick Mehta, because he's basically the king of customer success, or Christy Falteruso, because she's the queen of customer success.
I've had Christy on the podcast, but I've never had Nick. Okay. And if I could get into Nick's schedule, or if anyone watching could get me into Nick's schedule, that would be great. He's a very busy man. And Nick, I'd love to chat to you either about Taylor Swift or customer success. So I'd love to have Nick on the podcast. So thank you so much, Jared, for sharing your insights, your raw authenticity, your openness to what the job market was like for you. If anyone listening today has any follow-up questions or wants to get in touch and ask you more specific question, what's the best way to reach out?
But just LinkedIn. Yeah, shoot me a connection request on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. I respond to all my messages. So shoot me a message there and would love to connect.
Amazing. And I'll make sure to link all of your contact details as well as all the articles that we mentioned in this podcast in the show notes. But thank you so much, Jared.
Thanks, Anika. It was a great conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Customer Success Pro podcast today. I hope you learned something new to take back to your team and your company. If you enjoyed today's episode, please can you take 1 minute to give me a positive review on Apple Podcasts? It takes a lot of time and energy to create an episode, and I want to continue to create more for you. But it would be great to know that you are enjoying these episodes. Also, do not forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, as I release a new podcast every month. And if you have any topics that you would like me to discuss in the future, or you would like to be a guest on this podcast, please feel free to reach out. All my contact details are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it, because sharing is caring. Thanks again for listening, and tune in next time for more on customer success. Cheers to your CS journey, and catch you next time.